She wasn't going to stand for Guillory, who was barely a few years older than her, treating her like a frightened kid left home alone. "Yeah, I know who you are, mate. Can you get upstairs and lock the door?" She peered through the kitchen window at the dark of the walled back courtyard. Getting upstairs meant unbolting the back door, running up the back steps, using her key to open the house door and then locking it behind her again. A long time to be out there and exposed. The courtyard gate stood open, and she could swear she saw a flicker of movement in the alley beyond. But it could be her racing mind playing with her. No. "One of Christian's customers probably had a few too many," Guillory said. But there was nothing dismissive in his voice. He was calm and soothing and warm. "I'll do a drive-by and move him along if he's still there." "Thank you," Gemma said. "You could stop in for a cuppa. I'll put the kettle on." "Yeah, ta," Guillory said. It only took a few minutes for the police cruiser to pull up, the engine distinct on the otherwise silent street. The man stopped his banging, and Gemma felt like she could breathe again. "Gemma?" Guillory shouted, and the tone of his voice knocked the calm right back out of her. He wasn't calling her because he wanted his cup of tea. "Gemma, open the door." She ran for the door and unlocked it, pulling up the bolt at the bottom. The door struck her shoulder as Guillory pushed it open. The man was draped against him, one arm over his shoulders. Gemma had no idea who he was. If he was a Rainier local, he hadn't been for long. "I've called an ambulance," Guillory said. Guillory half-dragged, half-walked the man to the chair in the craft section, the one Nan had put out for husbands to sit in, while her customers chatted and poured through the displays. The man leaned back into it, and his unbuttoned jacket gaped open, revealing the shreds of his once white tank top, now soaked with red. "You're okay," Guillory said. "We've got you, mate. The ambos are coming. They'll have you right as rain." He seemed to be talking to himself more than the man, blathering cliches as he wadded up a handful of crocheted tea towels and pressed them to the man's chest. Gemma hovered behind him, trying to remember what the St. John's ambulance volunteer had said about stab wounds when she and Aubrey took a one-day first aid course. She'd got 100% on the quiz, but she was good at tests. She couldn't remember if they'd given any advice on what to do if you knew all the right steps, but couldn't make herself move from a spot 2 feet away from the victim. The man blinked woozily at her. "I'm Hugh, and the pretty lady you're eyeing is Gemma," Guillory said with forced jolliness. "Can you give us a name, mate?" "Dean," he whispered, sounding sad. Gemma glanced at the open door. She wanted to race over and lock it, but the ambulance crew would be on site at any moment. They were only coming from the station on Edgeworth Street, and she didn't want to slow them down. It wouldn't have mattered, as it turned out. No matter how many tea towels Guillory pressed into service, Dean's blood continued to escape. Less than 30 seconds after she opened the door, and 2 minutes before the whoop of the ambulance sounded in the street, Dean took his last breath. And Earl Grey's yarn and tea shop became the last stop on the Rainier Ripper walking tour. 1. So, as you would have seen from the map provided ahead of time, our planned route is circular. We would start and end here at the fountain. Part of what makes this such a compelling site for a tour, in my opinion, is that all of the points of interest are close together. Lachlan Lewis was a small man trying to look bigger, with his shoulders drawn back and his head up in a way that really just drew attention to how rapidly he was breathing. He wore a brand new blue polo fleece with the name of his tour company, Lewis & Co., embroidered in gold across his chest. The group was gathered beside the stone fountain that marked the precise midpoint between Melbourne and Sydney. Rainier was built around 2 parallel